It is so hot in here already. Welcome to another episode of the Marathon. My name is Mare, and today is my 40th birthday. I have been posting on this channel since my 20s, so you can see the entirety of my 30s here on the internet. And I know many of you have been with me since before I turned 30, so here's to us spending a decade together. Today I wanted to chat about a little bit about like what happened in my 30s, but more importantly, what I learned and what I'm leaving in this decade and not carrying into my 40s. Now, I know many people have a really hard time with aging, especially with those big birthdays, but I feel it is a privilege that not everybody is given. Many of us have lost people, and not everyone gets to celebrate birthdays. Jeremy died when he was 35, and ever since my 36th birthday, it is not lost on me that I am continuing longer than he was able to. And I hope that that's maybe something that can help you if you have a hard time aging. I think it's a privilege, and I am so happy to leave my 30s. Honestly, my 30s were kind of a hot mess, which we'll get into, but I am so looking forward to my 40s. I feel so much more present and centered and calm and myself heading into this decade than I have ever felt. Don't get me wrong, like we had a lot of fun in my 30s, a lot of travel, a lot of experiences, concerts, so much joy with Thomas, but a lot of really hard things happened. Obviously, I changed careers a few times. So I left morning radio. Then I started my own business. Didn't even watch one YouTube video on how to start a business, just like jumped into it and figured it out along the way. A business that I'm still running, amazingly. And I dabbled a little bit in afternoon radio, and then I completely was off the air. Had a podcast. I should say have a podcast. We will get back into that for sure. And then decided to go back to school, finished school, graduated with my Bachelor of Social Work, and am now working as a therapist. As one of my friends said in a graduation card, she was like, "Congratulations on your second, third, fourth, fifth career." I'm truly a believer that we do not need to do the same job our entire lives. If that works for you, great. And if it doesn't, like it didn't for me, also fantastic. It's good to ebb and flow and change and pivot. A lot of professional changes, that's for sure. And obviously many personal things happen in my life, a lot of which you have seen here on this channel. So much with Thomas, his growth, his successes, his challenges, everything we have just met head on. And he has definitely been my biggest teacher. The last 10 years, all of my 30s, but his entire life. Thomas continues to teach me so much every single day. Oh, also another thing that I didn't put in the professional category was, became an author. Wrote a book, released a book. It became an instant #1 bestseller. Like, there is just too much to remember that happened in my 30s. A lot of it is a blur. I obviously became a widow at the age of 33, so the majority of the last decade has been spent grieving and just realigning my entire self, my life, our home, our family, everything. Lots of that you have been along for, and we've done master classes together. I've traveled, done so many keynotes I couldn't even count. So I feel very blessed, even though my 30s was filled with so much heartache and pain that I would never wish on anyone. There was also a lot of joy. I met the unicorn. We started our life together. We got engaged. Many wonderful things have happened. I, watched my nieces and my nephew grow, and just there's just so much love in my life, which I am internally grateful for. I hope that you have seen in the last decade, which is just so wild to think that you and I have been hanging out, like sitting in this room for over 10 years, but I hope that you've been able to really see that lesson that I learned, that two things can be true at the same time. You can be grieving or going through incredibly hard times, changing a career, going back to school, struggling with your kids, losing people, getting divorced, whatever it may be, all of this. And you can also have joy and happiness and love and gratitude, and both things can be true at once. It's not just this or this, it can be both. And that was a huge lesson that I learned. I continued in therapy throughout the last 10 years, so shout out to my therapist for helping me through countless tears, confusion, annoyances. I even got the word acceptance tattooed here because that's a thing that came up a lot for me in therapy. Many tattoos, obviously, in the last 10 years, but let's get into some of the lessons I learned and things that I am leaving in this last decade and not taking into this fresh new season of my life. And for me, it really does feel like a fresh new season. Obviously, just graduated, just started a new career this month, and our lives are really shifting here in our house. Something that I'm leaving behind is saying yes immediately when someone asks me to do something. I have overscheduled myself and committed to far too much that I'm no longer doing that. I need to have someone suggest something or ask something of me and me say, let me think on it and I'll get back to you, instead of saying yes or no. But I am definitely the queen of overcommitting and saying yes and then pretty much instantly regretting it. So pausing more before I say yes. And it's okay to say, like, give me a few days, give me some time, I need to really think about it. Another thing that I'm leaving in my 30s is always being available. I bent over backwards in the last 10 years to work around other people's schedules, which there's definitely some give and take with that. I'm not saying like everything has to be on my schedule, but the way in which I shapeshifted to make other people's schedules work for mine, like, no more. I have basically come to the realization that we are living a very full life in our home, and my calendar, if it's set, it's okay that it's set, and I don't need to try to like move things around in order to make things happen. Of course, there are circumstances in which this would make sense, but what I'm saying is, like, I was notorious for saying yes, my point, and then two, overscheduling and always being available. Just because I'm free doesn't mean I'm available. Just because I work from home doesn't mean I'm available. Just because I'm resting doesn't mean I'm available. That's a huge thing I've learned in the last few years, is giving myself that, like, basically empty space and time and not filling it with something, and not always answering, always texting back immediately, like allowing myself to do what I need to do. So we're leaving that constant availability in our 30s. Okay, this is a big one for me. This has been a lesson that I have learned over and over and over again until I finally learned it, is trying harder in relationships than is being reciprocated with me. And what I mean by that is, I was also notorious for making way more of an effort with people who weren't making an effort with me. And that sucks. But I could not, for so long, I couldn't step back and be like, okay, this isn't working. I need to figure out what I can do differently, because you can't control other people. You can only change your behavior, your boundaries, your self-respect. And for some people who I noticed, if I was the one who was constantly texting first, I stopped. And then some people I just never heard from again. And that was hurtful, but also telling. Thomas is full on, and I spent too much of my energy in my 30s trying to make other people happy while really struggling at home. And we're not doing that anymore. We're just not doing that anymore. I have a finite amount of energy. Maybe it's because we're aging, but I'm not shape-shifting or bending over backwards or being in like non-reciprocal relationships anymore. And this kind of brings me to my next point. A lesson that I learned in my 30s that I will definitely be taking into my 40s and continuing is it's okay for relationships to end. I truly became a believer in a reason, a season, or a lifetime. I lost some really close friendships in my 30s. Some of them were my choice. Some of them were not my choice. But I don't think because a relationship ends, that means it wasn't a successful relationship. If you're friends with someone for a year and you are able to have a really wonderful relationship and friendship and help one another, that's great. And if that friendship ends or just kind of like fizzles out on its own, it was still a successful relationship. The next one I just wrote down, apologizing. I am basically no longer apologizing for things like going to bed early. I'm a gal who likes to be in bed by 9:30, and I will no longer be shamed for it. I will no longer be made to feel bad that I don't like to stay up late. I'm a morning person. I like to get up early. I don't like to be hungover. I like to wake up fresh. I like to work out and meditate and start my day. And by 9:30, she's ready for bed. If she's staying up later than 9:30, it's for a purpose, and we've had caffeine late in the day. I'm just no longer apologizing for it. Like people, I used to allow people to make me feel bad, but that's my choice. I'm a morning person. I go to bed early. Comes with the territory. She will forever be a morning radio gal. Another one I wrote down, I guess because it's summer, is like, I'm no longer apologizing that I don't like to be in the sun. She's a redhead. She's learned. She's had many a sunburn. I don't think any in my 30s. I think by my like mid to early 20s, I'd realized that. Like I haven't had a sunburn in a very long time, but like I like the SPF, I wear a hat, I don't like to sit in the sun. I'm not apologizing for it anymore. I used to feel so bad about it, like I was being a spoil sport. You want to hang out? I need shade. Thomas needs shade. I don't know if I read the Amy Poehler book first in my 30s, but that phrase that she says, good for you, not for me, has stuck with me so much. And what I mean by that is like, good for you for things that work for you, and some of them are not for me, and that's okay. Like we can disagree. So no longer apologizing for things that like work for me that wouldn't work for you, like not eating meat, not eating cheese. I cannot tell you the amount of people who have tried to like shame me or try to like make me feel like crap about that. Like, why do you care so much what I eat or don't eat? Same with like drinking. Why do you care if I'm not drinking or if I like, why? Just no longer apologizing for being vegan. And this is something that I'm not proud of, but I will admit to. I'm no longer apologizing for having to put my son first. Like that goes back to me really trying to work into other people's schedules and me being overly available. I'm no longer apologizing for not being able to do something because I'm with Thomas or anything to do with him. I'm sure that sounds really bad, me saying that, but it's the truth. Like I'm no longer apologizing for making him a priority. I've always made him a priority, but going into my 40s, it'll be even more. And then the last two things I wrote down that I am not taking into my 40s is opinions. And that is two different kinds of opinions. One, just opinions in general on bodies, like just full stop. I think it was in maybe first year university, I can't remember, but something shifted so deep inside of me. Why are we commenting on people's bodies? Another thing was, stop saying that something's flattering, because what you're saying is it's making you look skinnier. And like, why are we, like, I'm not just gonna say women, men, people, anyone who identifies in any which way, you know, the societal, like, you have to look smaller, and the smaller you are, the more value you have. Or perhaps if you're of a different gender, maybe it's the bigger you are, the more value you have. Like, just none of that. None of it. It's just the opinions of bodies. And that goes also for me. Like, a girlfriend of mine said to me, maybe last year, she's like, you know what, Mare? You know when my life got a lot better was when I stopped hating my body and just accepted it for how it looks and how it wants to rejig as we age. And I was like, I just loved it. She's like, and the second I stopped hating my body, I got healthier. Like, I just felt better. So leaving that in my 30s, going into my 40s, like, we've got cellulite, we've got gray hairs, we've got hairs coming out of places that wouldn't normally come out of. I'm not apologizing for it. Like, do you have any friends who, if they were asked to describe you, would your weight be one of the most interesting things about you? We're like, that toxicity, goodbye, into my 30s. And it's hard because it's like ingrained in you. I cannot tell you how much work it has taken me to get to this place, but we're here. And the last thing that I am leaving in my 30s, the opinions of others. Honestly, like, as the queen of all RuPaul says, unless those people are paying your bills, pay them bitches no mind. I cannot even guesstimate how much time I wasted in the last 10 years thinking about what other people thought before I made a decision, or basing my decisions and my likes on the opinions of others and like, what would they think of me, or what would so and so do in this situation. Enough, never again, goodbye. Like, and I'm not saying like suddenly I'm just gonna become an asshole, but I just, like, you don't like my tattoos? That's fine. These aren't your arms or legs or torso. Good for me, not for you. I will give credit where credit is due. So much of my inner work and change has been made infinitely easier by meeting the unicorn. And I don't mean that in like any way, like, oh, I wasn't a whole person, or like he's my better half. No, we are two separate human beings who met. Thank you, Bumble. But to have someone in my life who gives me unabashed love and support and like oozes confidence into me has been life-changing. So I really wish that for you, whether it's a friend, a partner, a colleague, in yourself. Like, the amount of steadiness I feel with him, life-changing. And I'm so excited to go into my 40s with him and with Thomas and with you. I guess that's just to say, like, really pay attention to with whom you spend your time, which we just covered a lot of. So life's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Thank you for the last 10 years. I definitely did not think when I started this channel on maternity leave with Thomas, because I was scared I was gonna forget how to talk on the radio, that we'd be here on my 40th birthday, filming a video, looking at a stack of Finding Your Cape, and picturing so many of you who I have come to know, especially in the Mareathoner group and meetups and things we've done. Whew, you have been such an integral part of the last decade, and here's to the future. Let me know like what resonated with you or what you would maybe not take into the next year, even if it's not a new decade, or lessons that you have learned. Honestly, I learned so much from you. This was a long one, but it's my birthday, and that's how I wanted to spend some of my time today. So you can do anything for 10 minutes, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.